All right, let me take you back to a time when my life was a grind, a blur of early mornings and endless shifts, when I was just another face no one bothered to notice. My name's Lena Harper, and I spent 3 years scrubbing floors and folding sheets at the Pinnacle Hotel, a glitzy downtown tower where the rich and powerful tossed their money around like confetti, and people like me? We were ghosts, there to clean up their messes and vanish. But this story isn't about staying invisible, it's about the day everything flipped, when I went from being nobody to the one holding all the cards. It all started in my tiny apartment, for 45 a.m., the alarm screaming before I could even think about hitting snooze. I'd stand in front of my cracked bathroom mirror, ironing my maid's uniform, whispering to myself, "Today's gonna be different, Lena. Today you take a step." Same words, every morning, like a prayer I wasn't sure I believed in. I was 33, raising my little sister Maya, who was busting her tail in college, chasing a dream I'd long given up on. Our dad, Marcus Harper, passed when I was 19, leaving behind nothing but debts and a few wild stories about investments that never made sense. I dropped out of school, took any job I could, and landed at the Pinnacle, where I learned fast: keep your head down, stay invisible, or get crushed. The Pinnacle was a palace, all marble and chandeliers, but behind the scenes, it was a snake pit. The guests, like the Bradleys, think old money with a side of venom, treated us like dirt. Evelyn Bradley, dripping in diamonds, would snap her fingers and call me girl, like I didn't have a name. Her husband, Victor, was worse, tossing insults like he was doing me a favor. And then there was the manager, Paul Decker, a guy who'd sell his soul for a pat on the back from the right guest. He'd chew me out in front of everyone for a speck of dust that didn't exist, his voice loud enough to make sure the lobby heard. "This is a five-star hotel, Lena, not a dive bar," he'd bark, while I bit my tongue so hard it bled. 3 years of that, 3 years of swallowing my pride, all for Maya's tuition and a roof over our heads. But one morning, something shifted. I got a letter from a lawyer, James Carter, fancy embossed paper, the kind you don't see in my world. It had been sitting in my drawer for months, unopened, because I knew once I tore it open, nothing would be the same. Clara, my coworker and the closest thing I had to a mom, finally convinced me to read it. "Lena, whatever's in there, it's your dad talking to you. Listen to him." So I did. And holy hell, it was a bombshell. Turns out, my dad wasn't just a dreamer. Had sunk every penny he had into the Pinnacle back in '98, buying 40% of the shares as a silent partner. Silent, because the big shots back then didn't want a black man's name on their books. When he died, those shares went into a trust for me, and now, with some estate sale I didn't even know about, I own 55% of the whole damn hotel. I couldn't breathe. Me, Lena Harper, the maid who got yelled at for breathing too loud, on the Pinnacle? Clara just laughed, tears in her eyes, saying, "Your daddy played the long game, child." But I wasn't ready to play mine, not yet. James told me to keep it quiet until the papers were final, so I went back to work, pushing my cart, polishing brass, acting like nothing had changed. Inside, though, I was watching every shady deal Decker made, every time the Bradleys humiliated someone, every dollar they skimmed off the top. I kept notes, built a case, waited for my moment. That moment came at the Pinnacle's annual gala, a night when the city's elite wined and dined while we scurried around like roaches. I was serving champagne, invisible as always, when Evelyn Bradley decided to make a scene. "Oh, look, it's our favorite maid," she said, loud enough for the whole room to turn. "Lena, wasn't it? Tell me, dear, do you ever dream of wearing my necklace?" She dangled a diamond the size of a walnut, smirking. The crowd chuckled, and Victor chimed in. "Careful, Evelyn, she might swipe it when you're not looking." I just smiled, poured their drinks, and said, "No, ma'am, I don't dream of things I can't have." But inside, I was burning because I knew what they didn't. In an hour, I'd own their playground. The board meeting was right before the gala. I walked in, still in my server's uniform, and you should have seen their faces: Decker, the Bradleys, the board, all thinking I was there to mop the floor. James was at the front, papers spread out, laying it all bare: my dad's investment, the trust, the 55% that made me the boss. Evelyn's jaw hit the floor. "This is absurd," she screeched. "She's a maid." I stepped forward, voice steady, and said, was a maid, Mrs. Bradley. Now I'm your landlord. The room went dead quiet, except for Victor choking on his whiskey. Decker tried to bluster. This is a mistake, Lena. You're out of your league. But James shut him down, sliding a folder across the table proof of Decker's embezzlement. Fake invoices, kickbacks, the works. You're done, Paul, I said. Security's waiting. At the gala, I took the stage, still in my uniform for one last jab. Good evening. I'm Lena Harper, and as of 4 p.m., I own the Pinnacle Hotel. The crowd gasped, glasses dropped, and Evelyn Bradley looked like she'd been slapped. I laid it all out: the theft, the lies, the way they treated us like garbage. This hotel's gonna change, I said. No more stealing from workers, no more letting rich folks treat us like dirt. Anyone who doesn't like it can leave. And yeah, I looked right at the Bradleys when I said that. Security escorted them out, Evelyn screaming about lawsuits, Victor muttering about knowing people. I didn't care. I was done being invisible. The next few weeks were a storm. The Bradleys hit back hard, leaked videos, smear campaigns calling me a fraud, even got the bank to threaten to freeze our accounts. But I had my team: Clara, now head of housekeeping, Luis, my new guest services director, and James, who'd been my dad's lawyer and had my back like family. We fought fire with fire, releasing proof of Decker's scams, videos of Evelyn's tantrums, emails showing how deep the corruption ran. The public turned fast. Lena owns it was trending, and workers from other hotels started sharing their stories. The bank backed off when I showed them a business plan that'd double revenue, plus a not-so-subtle hint that I'd go public if they tried to sink a black-owned business. 3 months later, the Pinnacle's a different place. We've got raises, benefits, a scholarship fund for workers' kids, and a zero-tolerance policy for jerks. Evelyn, she's back, working as a maid under her maiden name, scrubbing the same floors she used to walk over. I hired her, not out of pity, but because everyone deserves a shot to do better. She's trying, I'll give her that, but one wrong move, and she's out. Me? I'm standing in my dad's old spot across the street, looking at the Pinnacle, now called Harper House, a place where everyone matters. I'm not just keeping his dream alive, I'm building something bigger, a whole industry where workers aren't invisible anymore. So, here's my question for you: what's the cost of ignoring the people who keep the world running? Who's the invisible person in your life, and what might you see if you actually looked? Drop your thoughts in the comments, share your stories, because trust me, this fight's far from over, and we're all in it together.